Hey, be sure to visit my website, www.sara8carter.com, for my latest reporting and stories. And guess what? While you're there, be sure to subscribe to my email list so that we can stay in touch. Today, we're going to talk about the Gen Z generation. And it's in a crisis, guys. It's in a big crisis. A recent Morning Consult poll found that, listen to this, 16% of Gen Zers are actually proud to live in the United States. That means the rest of them that they polled are not. What are we teaching our children? What are we doing to our kids and our young people that they are not proud of being Americans? That's absolute insanity, considering how amazing our nation has been since 9/11. Some of the, and even my husband would say, the greatest generation, and we'll talk about this. We always talked about World War II being the greatest generation. And my husband, who served in Afghanistan, who served in Iraq, would say, I don't believe that, because I know so many young men and women that, and now, of course, those aren't Gen Zers, but that served in Afghanistan, that served in Iraq, that serve our nation today, that are just as brave and just as amazing. So why are the Gen Zers not proud of being Americans? The majority of them. We're going to dissect that. We're going to take that apart, because I am joined today by a founder and CEO of an organization called Run Gen Z, Joe Mitchell. He was the second youngest person ever elected to the Iowa State Legislature, and he is here on the Sara Carter Show to show how his organization is actually helping young people run for office and hopefully reverse this trend. It's a very scary trend. I'll also talk about my trip to Philadelphia and how our wide open borders is related to the denigration of America's once great cities. People, we have got to focus on what is happening in our nation. And it is terrifying to me, not only what's happening to our beautiful cities, but what is happening to our youth, how we are being poisoned by our adversaries, and while we are asleep at the wheel, how we are losing our country. We cannot allow that to happen. 2024 is literally around the corner, and it's going to require every single one of us to fight back. Hey, everyone, please follow and subscribe. Get all the links at sara8carter.com. That is sara8carter.com. And while you are there, I'd like you to sign up for my email list so that you will not be shadow banned. So you know how much I love AMAC, right? The Association of Mature American Citizens. I love the fact that they go to Washington, D.C., that they fight for us, that we could be at home cooking dinner. And I know AMAC is going to be taking care of me up on Capitol Hill in the swamp. That's what they do. When you join AMAC, when you're a part of the AMAC family, you can be assured that they are doing everything in their power to fight for the conservative values that you and I both believe in. And they are nothing like that other group that all they do is have a liberal agenda. AMAC offers what no other group will offer you, and that is an advocacy, an affiliation. They take action. They maintain a full-time presence in Washington, D.C., and they call on our members of Congress to actually provide guidance. And I know they do this. I stand with AMAC, and I hope that you will too. I encourage you to join today at amac.us/Carter. That's CARTER. That's AMAC.us/Carter. The benefits of membership are great, but guess what? The cause is even greater. Join today at amac.us/Carter. Don't forget Carter, CARTER. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my trip to Philly for Sean Hannity. We decided to go up to Philadelphia because there have been a lot of stories, and if you've been listening to my Dark Wars podcast, you'll know this as well, that fentanyl is becoming a scourge in our nation, not only with rising addiction rates, but with the killing, and I believe the killing of and murder of our young people by poisonous counterfeit pills that are all over our streets. This isn't just about the border. And when I tell you the border is in every single city, it's in every single state, it's not supposed to be a cliche. It's a reality, folks. So even if you're in a small town right now in Iowa, if you're, sipping a martini in Hawaii, if you're sitting along, the Hudson River in New York, if you're in Georgia, if you're in a small town in Oklahoma, wherever you are at, Montana, Utah, anywhere, Oregon, North Dakota, the border is somehow affecting you. The drugs are all over our nation. And the influx of so many people that we haven't even vetted, children that are being trafficked. Literally, our federal government is handing over kids to guardians. They don't even know who they are. How is this okay? How is this okay in this day and age that our executive branch, that President Joe Biden and his minions in the White House have allowed this to happen to our nation? I went to Philadelphia and I was stunned. I've never been anywhere in the world where I have experienced this type of denigration. Not this. Not in a nation like ours. Not in a powerful, beautiful nation would I have ever imagined, where our founding fathers once debated this beautiful city. Huge, large areas were just destroyed. Overrun by trash and garbage, homes literally collapsing on themselves. I am not making this up. In fact, the security that was with me on this trip, because I had to have three big security guys with me because it was so dangerous. And I was in the Kensington area. They were saying that some of the houses collapsed in on themselves the week before I got there. How is that even possible? On the streets, there were so many people shooting up. I could literally see, and especially with the camera, in some areas I couldn't get out of my car at all. I could not get out of the vehicle. It was so dangerous, so dangerous. We even passed some guys selling drugs right there 3 blocks in, and they were yelling at the car, and I thought we were going to get shot at. But I could see open wounds on the arms of some of the drug users. And okay, heroin users, you usually get those open wounds for people that use it a lot. But right now there's something different on the streets. So let me explain first to you what's going on, because this will probably make sense. The drugs are coming from Mexico, the fentanyl. So mostly in Philadelphia, 95% of the narcotics that are coming into Philly are literally being supplied by the Sinaloa cartel. We all know that Chapo Guzman is now in our, Supermax prison in Colorado. They're holding him down, little Chapo, little man, but his family and other people are still running the cartel. It is still operating. We've got, little Chapo sitting in, the prison there in Colorado at the Supermax, but the cartel itself is still fully operational and ongoing. It's like, whatever. So I don't even care. Dismantle the cartel. But they're not going to do that. So we've got on the streets of Philly, according to law enforcement, 95% of the fentanyl is coming from the Sinaloa cartel. The Sinaloa cartel gets that fentanyl and those chemical precursors from China. The Chinese Communist Party is very well aware that all of those precursor chemicals are leaving their shores and getting into Mexico, and so is the Mexican government. And the cartels are mixing up these batches of super poison in Mexico and shipping them all across the United States to poison our children. And President Biden is allowing that to happen along with other people. That is what's going on. Now, the Dominicans on the ground, the Dominican gangs that are operating inside Philly, are the ones that are distributing for the Sinaloa cartel this really shitty, horrible chemical solution that our young people are injecting into their arms, and some of them accidentally taking in counterfeit pill form. The Dominicans are also adding to it xylazine, which is an animal tranquilizer. The reason they're adding the xylazine to the fentanyl is because it's mostly used on horses, has never been approved for use in humans. So just realize what people are putting in their body is because it extends the high. So fentanyl is a short-lived high compared to what the drug user wants. So it will extend the high. But guess what else it does? It creates a flesh-eating scenario, like a virus. So once the xylazine is in there, it causes the wounds to be much bigger, much larger. So you literally see people with, let's say, 4-finger wide gaping wounds in their arms, in their legs, on their faces. It's like literally the Night of the Living Dead or something. I can't even describe it. It's actually worse than that because that's just a movie. These are actually people's children. These are Americans. These are people that have lost their way, have been poisoned. Some of them started using drugs and, you think you just ignore it. Just ignore it. You can't ignore it. Our children are dying. They are being taken advantage of while we go to work. Guess what? Drug dealers at their school, some boy, I met a girl there and I wanted to talk to her. I didn't even care anymore. I'm like, you know what? Let's get out of the car. Let's talk to her. And I go underneath this like metal staircase with an awning because it's just pouring rain. And all around me and all around her are needles, just everywhere, needles and trash. And she's sitting there. And she, she's an addict and she tells me she started using at the age of 15, a boy that she was dating, got her to try it. She was a child of abuse, the same stories, that you hear, the sad tragedy of life for some people. And I just sat there with her and just listened to her. And I just wanted to cry. And I wanted to take it in. I didn't want to ignore one thing she said to me because I thought, my God, this could be my kid. This could be your kid. This could be our sister, our brother. And how many people have we already lost? How many people have we already lost to narcotics? I want you to listen to this clip. And then I'm really going to push this because I really believe that you and I together as parents, we can make a difference. We can put a stop to this. We can save lives. Listen to this clip.
Krokodil, have you heard about it? It's made it up here. And if you notice all the wounds out here, there's everybody's got wounds, amputees, more than I'm out here.
How long have you been living on the streets?
Right now, I've been spurts, but right now I've been about 5 years. I just lost my husband a year ago to an infection.
They've been putting a lot of this tranquilizer and this, what you guys call on the street, Krokodil, into the drugs. Are you scared that you may not survive the next hit?
What's scary is when you kind of try and clean up or go to the hospital and then come back out. You're more likely to die. You know what I mean? It's actually trying to get clean and then coming, trying to just maintain a little bit of a feel. You know what I mean? That's what's scary is that, if you do come back, you're more likely to overdose 3 or 4 or 5 times. This out here, no, I wish I was more fearful, but no, I'm not.
A lot of times I hear stories and they say, these are zombies, but you're people, right?
Yeah, we are people. We are. But we're also zombies. We're the Night of the Living Dead out here. It's terrible.
She mentioned something in that clip. She said Krokodil. And I want you to understand what that is. If for those of you that do not know what Krokodil is, some people thought she was using it maybe as describing the xylazine that's on the street. But it's not. Krokodil is something different. And I think it has been here in the United States, but in very, very small amounts in like different time periods. And right now, because of that interview that I did with that young lady, there is an ongoing investigation to see if Krokodil, which is desomorphine, is back on our streets. This weird crocodile mixture, or crocodile, a street name Krokodil, causes basically the same type of gaping wounds. It will literally eat at the flesh. There have been people where you will look at them and you won't even believe your eyes, because large sections of like their arm or their leg will be completely gone and you can see straight through the bone, straight to the bone. They'll just be sitting there on a sidewalk. It's such a powerful narcotic. I mean, I don't even know how people survive this. It causes thrombosis. It damages the soft tissues around the injection sites. And I'm reading here from the DEA, the skin's appearance becomes similar to a crocodile's scaled and rugged skin. The skin injuries can eventually develop into severe tissue damage, leading to thrombophlebitis and gangrene. These conditions usually result, listen to this, in limb amputation or sometimes death. And let me tell you what is happening on the streets of Philadelphia. That exactly. And that woman that I talked to, her husband was a drug user like her, and he died the same way. It is like our streets, we are literally being poisoned. We are literally being poisoned. I don't want to scare you, but I hope I am. It's like kind of because I'm scared too. It's like misery loves company, right? Because I'm scared too. Because when I see this, I come home and I think about this. I talk to my kids about this. I tell them, never take anything that anyone gives you. If it has to be your prescription, because I don't want to lose you, because I love you and I do not want you to die. That's how serious this is. And then I want to tell you as parents, me as a parent, we have to fight for our children. We have to realize that 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, our kids are with other people in another environment in a school. We've got to know who they're hanging out with. We have to know if the police have been around those schools and have, arrested people for narcotics. Who's in our neighborhood? How can we best protect our children? And I'm not talking about locking our children down. Our children need to be children. They need to experience life as well. But we need to take what is happening in our nation seriously enough that we not only defend our children, but we vote out of office these crazy people. These people that are putting criminals ahead of Americans, that are putting border chaos ahead of Americans, that are putting that all ahead of our national security and our own children. We need to vote them out. We need to call them out. We need to tell them that it is unacceptable, that we're not going to do it anymore, that our kids are worth more than that. And we need to reach out to our younger generations that are being brainwashed, literally brainwashed by these leftist, socialist enemies of our state, because that is what they are. They are enemies of the state. And we need to tell them that we will not accept this anymore, which is the reason why shortly I have founder and CEO of Run Gen Z, Joe Mitchell, on. He's a young man. He was, listen to this, the second youngest person ever elected to the Iowa state legislature. We need to start paying attention to young conservatives, and we need to start spreading the message of a thriving nation, right? A nation built on freedom and liberty, a nation that is the beacon of light for the rest of the world. We need to get back to that. And we need to believe in it. And we need to pass that message on to our kids. They need to believe that the greatest thing in the world, the most important thing to fight for beyond God and your family, is your nation. It's freedom. It's those essential principles. And that's what I hope you take a listen to Joe. You're going to be blown away. He's amazing. He's a businessman. He's 25. He's like, I mean, he's got his whole future ahead of him. It gives me faith in our youth. But before I get there, I want to tell you a little bit about Allegiance Gold. Gold and silver, they allow you to protect what you have worked so hard for. And I'm so grateful to have Allegiance Gold as a sponsor of the Sara Carter Show. Listen to this. You get $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara sent you. That's SARA. Tell them that Sara sent you. My friends at Allegiance Gold can help you protect your IRA or your 401k with physical gold and silver, or have it delivered securely right to your door. They will educate you on the benefits of physical gold because they care and they want to build a long-term relationship with you. Allegiance Gold has the highest ratings in the industry, 5 stars with TrustLink, AAA rated with the Business Consumer Alliance, and have an A+ from the Better Business Bureau. Get $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them Sara sent you. So don't wait. Call or click today, 877-702-7272. That's 877-702 Sara, SARA, or go to protectwithsara.com. We can't control the Biden administration, but we can prepare. 877-702-7272. That's 877-702 Sara, SARA, or protectwithsara.com. Hey guys, if you haven't done so yet, please like this video and subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. We have so many exciting interviews and videos lined up in the new year, and I want to share those with you. Thank you so much. Can't wait for you to join me. Joe, thanks so much for being on the show with me.
Sara, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, yeah, and I want everyone out there to know Gen Z, nobody really realizes, because I think there's a small cluster of you that are just working for common sense, trying to do your best for the American people, for our nation. And then there's this whole, and I'll get into these percentages, but there's this whole other side of the Gen Z that people think of, and they think of radical leftists, Marxists, ideas. But that's not the case, right, Joe? I mean, there are a lot of you, and I believe, especially with your group, and we're going to get into details, that are young Americans that believe in conservative values and really want to espouse those, right?
Yeah, I mean, many of my colleagues that I went to college with are some of those radical progressive socialists. But then post-college, I learned that there is, normal conservative, young people out there. And, thank God for groups like, CPAC and Turning Point USA and College Republicans, Young Republicans, where young people can flock to meet, people that think similar to them. But I always tell people that, historically, young people have never been conservative, right? Because you don't pay taxes, right. You're not really an adult, you haven't bought a house yet, you have a mortgage you have to pay for. And so, that's not the concerning thing. But the concerning thing about young people right now is that there's an ever, widening gap of young people that are considering themselves, socially very progressive, or just considering themselves socialists. Which, wasn't normal 10, 20, 30 years ago. So that's kind of the battle that we're fighting, is that once they become so radicalized, it's so hard to even get them to the middle of the aisle to get them to vote for a sensible, conservative candidate.
Let's talk about that. I think this is so important. It's vitally important, actually, because I believe that something has happened within our school systems, within our universities, that we've seen this progression towards this radical Marxism. And there was a recent Morning Consult poll that literally found that only 16%, according to this poll, of Gen Zers are proud to live in the United States. That just blew my mind. Why do you think that is? I mean, you were just recently in the university, you're young. I mean, you served in the legislature. This is like, what is going on here that we've lost so many of our youth to this? I mean, opposing ideology is so un-American.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just had lunch, just yesterday with friend of mine from college that's a progressive, that's, votes Democrat, that's a liberal. And he's one of the few that I can actually have a conversation with, a real rational conversation, really talk about these issues. And he was bringing up, some of the bans that we did in Iowa and CRT and some of the LGBTQ curriculum, and said, don't you think that's crazy that you guys voted for that? And I said, well, no. I said, and his name's Kellen, and he's a good friend of mine. And I said, Kellen, I said, think about when you were in elementary, right? When you were in middle school and high school. I said, where I went to school in small town Iowa, I had, maybe 2 students of color in my graduating class of 30, and, very small town, very rural, very white. And in my classes from elementary all the way to high school, we learned about the terrible things of, what we did to folks that were in slavery and the Reconstruction era and the Jim Crow era and redlining and all those things and all those historical, figures or that were Black and brown and people of color. And I said, we want to continue to teach those things. That's not what we're banning with CRT. With CRT, what we're banning it is a radicalized agenda to tell someone and generalize people based on their skin color that they're either an oppressor or they're oppressed. And I said, we just want to continue to teach history how it is. And we're not, saying that, that Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and our founding fathers didn't have faults. The curriculum they want us to teach is written by people that hate America. The people that wrote the 1619 Project aren't rational, moderate people. And so this is this kind of stuff they're trying to push on us. And we're saying, no, we're going to reject that, because when you look at the college system and higher ed in particular, where they're teaching about white privilege, where they're teaching about these different concepts of generalizing races and saying that you're either a victim and an oppressor, these are things that are all written by people. They don't love America, and they're not going to say, hey, we have faults, but also we're the greatest country on the face of this earth that has actually paved the way to make sure that, people all around the world, have human rights. These people are people that absolutely hate America. They want to see the downfall of America, and they despise it. And so that's the difference between, we want to teach history, and we want to make sure that people know the history of our country and the great people that helped us progress towards a better America and a more perfect union. But the folks pushing the CRT 1619 Project type of education are completely radicalized, and they do not love America. They actually hate America. And those are things that we're fighting against.
It is. It's normalizing systemic racism, saying it exists in every part of our society. It's driving a wedge between our children, between our families, in our schools, in our system. It's almost as if there is an effort to break down our culture and our nation, our principles, our foundation, and then try to rebuild it in their vision. Part of that, what I remember, and I remember hearing President Obama saying this, and I was always so stunned, is like, we're going to lead from behind. We shouldn't be the enlightened, nation sitting on a hill, that people should emulate. We should take a step back and, give all these other nations an opportunity to lead, but in the weirdest ways. It wasn't like President Trump, where he said, okay, NATO, pay your fair share. You want to protect your borders, then you got to pay your fair share. It wasn't that way. It was always like, we as Americans have an issue with ourselves because we are not what we claim to be. That's the way that I started to see this push. And I really feel like it's almost as if it's brainwashed so many of our youth. I talk to young people and I'm like, wow, it's a totally different America than the America that I know, than the one that my father fought for, or my grandfather, or his great grandfather. You know what I mean? So when you do that, how do you as a young man, so you served as a state representative for the state of Iowa, how do you as a young man confront that in such a way that you get, like you said, your friend who's listening to you to actually really take a step back and say, okay, wait a minute, maybe there's some place we can meet in the middle. Maybe you're right, Joe. Maybe I'm not seeing things clearly. I mean, can you get to that point with them after this?
Well, I think, that conversation I just had, everyone listening to this podcast can have with those friends and neighbors and family members, that are rational folks, and we'll sit down and have that conversation and really just telling them the facts, right? And telling them that, America is exceptional. The world would not look like it is right now if it wasn't for America and the strides we had and the ingenuity and the entrepreneurship of the last, century to quarter century. And so, but then on a larger level, on a more macro level, what I'm doing, with my group Run Gen Z that we're going to talk about, is actually helping to recruit and empower young conservatives to run for office and to run for, city council, county board of supervisors, the state legislatures, because in my belief, and when we talk about this movement as a whole as Gen Z being very progressive, well, they have people like Max Frost and AOC to look up to. We don't have a ton of young people in political power to be able to look up to and say, I want to be like that person. That person makes sense. And what they're saying is something I'm going to be drawn to. And so our mission at Run Gen Z, and really what started with my own candidacy of getting elected to the state house in Iowa at 21, was that we had to train and equip more young people, more conservatives, to go out and fight the radical left and show that young conservatives exist, number one, so we can start getting more young people to think about our party and our platform and our movement in a much different way after they've been indoctrinated going to these liberal colleges all around the country.
I think this is so important, and I'm glad that we're bringing it up now and not right in the beginning, because I wanted everyone to hear you. I'm always so amazed at just how, and I think amazed in the sense that because of what we've been talking about how many young people have been just, swooned by the left and moved over to this like Marxist ideology. But when I met you, Joe, and I meet others like you, you're so eloquent. You understand like the basic conservative values, like fundamental values that make our nation so great. And you have a mission. And this is a mission that every single conservative should have, because like me, I mean, we're older. We've, we're doing our job from our position, from what we can do based on our life experience. You're the beginning. You're the future of our country. And, I've talked with Carol. I know she's awesome. She is a big supporter of you all. And she's a friend of mine who really supports Run Gen Z. But we really need to, as adults, get out there and support our young people and say, look, we're going to be there for you. We're going to help you move ahead. Talk a little bit about that, because there are a lot of young Run Gen Zers that are trying to get into office, that are now in office. Like, what are you doing right now to ensure that for the future?
Yeah, so what we do at Run Gen Z is we have a coalition of elected officials, about 75 now, just in the last 2 years that we've grown from 4 to 75 elected officials from state.
Think about that, guys. 75 elected officials from 4. That's what they've been able to do. That's why I brought them on the show. You guys are amazing. Go ahead.
And mostly, under the age of 30. That are out there in your local city councils, county board of supervisors, and your state legislatures in 35 different states across this country. We're continuing to grow. What we do is we're going out to different groups, to Turning Point conferences, to College Republican conferences, to CPAC, recruiting the young people there to actually run for office, bringing them to training sessions in different regions around this country. We just had one in Dallas 2 weeks ago as our largest one yet. We had over 90 attendees. We had 30 elected officials, 60 candidates, break them up into small groups, give them personalized mentors that have been there and done that as young people to help them through the race. How do you raise your first $1,000? What do you spend that money on? How do you get the door knocking data to go out and block walk? And these are, what you might think is simple questions if you've been in the political arena before. But if you actually haven't, worked on a campaign, which I never had, I had to rely on a few contacts that I had at the state capitol, ask, okay, so I'm going to file. How do I file? How many signatures I need to do that? Where do I go get the paperwork to be able to, file to run for office? And how do I get, the application and software to be able to actually go around, block and target voters, in the primary and then onto the general? How do I write a friends and family letter to send out to raise, $50, $100, $200 at a time to get those first few dollars in the door to then buy those campaign signs and buy that literature and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're providing to these new candidates that Run Gen Z. And it's a very unique system. What I did, Sarah, is I went out and says, anybody else doing this? I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I have enough stuff going on in my life. I am own real estate development company. I was in the state legislature for 4 years. Not necessarily something that, I necessarily wanted to do, but needed to be done. And now we're here 2 years later, have had, massive progress. We've been doing it on a shoestring budget. We're very frugal. We're very efficient with our dollars, and we've had great success.
Yeah, see, I think that's really important. And I think like for anybody who's thinking about like, how do we protect our country? How do we ensure that our country has a future? It's group like yours, Run Gen Z, that make that difference. You know, what do you say to people that are like, oh, well, they're too young, a few more years of experience would do them some good. What do you say to them about taking this moment as a young person to run for office that would, I guess, give the impetus for those people that are wanting to support you to actually do that, to cross that barrier and say, you know what, we need young people in office. We need to be listening to them. What do you say to convince them?
Well, several things is that, we have a vetting system around Gen Z. We have a, very particular system and an interview process to figure out if they're ready. Does the rubber meet the road, right? And are these folks equipped and have the skill set, and are they coachable? It is really what it comes down to be able to run for these offices. And is there an open race for them to run for? But the other thing, just in my point I made earlier, is that the Democrats and the progressive left has been doing this for years and years and years. They've been building this bench, they've been building this farm team, and they never have a lack of young people running for these offices. And it might not even be entirely more, but they are more apt to promote these people, it seems like. They love putting AOC and Max Frost and these, Elon Omar, these younger, congressional folks in Congress on TV to spew that message and to talk to young people. And so, it just seems like conservatives aren't they don't jump up quite as quickly to do that and to help those young people that maybe have a platform. And we have so many young people, so many people in our organization that have a much better and more inspiring story than I did. They come from, very low income families that are people of color, that are women, that are now serving in their city councils and their state legislatures. And so, we just have this portfolio of young people that are rock stars, and they're going to be the next statewide elected officials and congressional candidates, coming up there. You're going to hear about some of these folks' names, I think, in the near future. But it's all starting at Run Gen Z. And it's all starting with the movement that we've created to get these young people to run for office, inspire them to run for office, but empower them most of all to let them know that if I can do it, you can do it.
Wow, that's so great, Joe. Before I let you go, because I want to focus this a little bit more on what you just said. And I know that everybody's going to want to know, like, how do we get a hold of, the group? What if we want to make a donation? What if we want to find out who's running in our area? You talked about women and, running in the conservative women, young women, as well as people from various economic as well as backgrounds, being a part of Run Gen Z. And I think that's so important, because one of the things that I'm dealing with, and I focus a lot on Hispanic Americans, and I'm doing a lot of work there, is that as conservatives, we need to reach out more. We can't just sit back and play to the same folks, right? I think we see that with Run Gen Z. We're reaching out to young people, whereas Democrats did that before. But we've got to get out there and get in the communities that count. Hispanic communities, hardworking communities that are conservative. The Democrats should not own these communities, or should not think they do. We should be a voice too for everyone, for every single American, because we are a nation of immigrants and a diverse nation. How do you go about that with Run Gen Z? Do you go out and do grassroots meetings? What is it that you all do to try to ensure that you're representing every single community that you possibly can?
Yeah, well, one quick story, Sarah, one of our first elected officials in our coalition was Joel Castro. He was the youngest elected official in Texas for about 2 or 3 years. And he was from just south of Houston. And so Alvin, Texas, actually is the name of it. He's from Alvin. And then Joel actually mentored 3 other young Hispanic men in Texas that all won their city council races in 2021. One of whom is Roman Garcia, and Roman's, over by San Antonio. But Roman is now the youngest elected official in Texas. And so we did awesome. A series of trainings down in by the southern border, Laredo, El Paso, McAllen, this past September, and to go out and actually specifically go recruit more young Hispanics. We're able to train hundreds of new young Hispanics, hopefully that will turn into actually running for office and be candidates. But that's the kind of culture that we're creating at Run Gen Z, is setting these young people up that historically might not be conservative with other conservatives, help them run for office and help change this country for the better.
Wow, Joe, from your mouth to God's ears, I'm like all about supporting your group. It's amazing what you've done, and it's absolutely incredible. It offers such an alternative to what we've been seeing, and it really challenges, it opens up the political realm for every American, and allows us to really be able to find a good way to fight back politically. And I agree with you. I don't think that we should allow the Democrats to continue to own this. They don't anymore, not with you. How can my listeners learn more about the organization and support your candidates?
Of course. So you guys can go to www.rungenz.com, our Facebook page at RunGenZ, Twitter at RunGenZ, Instagram at run.genz, and then my email is joe@rungenz.com. So feel free to reach out. We'd love to have your guys' support. Obviously, this takes resources. I got 3 full-time staff that we're taking care of as well to help vet all these candidates, do all the data analysis and district research. So thank you guys so much for your support. Sarah, thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure, and I hope to talk soon.
Oh, it was great having you on, Joe. And I'll be sure to put all of that information up on our website so that we can all get out there and support you and support future candidates and make our nation what it needs to be, a great shining light up on a hill once again, especially with young people like you. I feel good about our future. Thank you for being a part of the Sarah Carter Show. Hey, before we get to our closer, you all know how much I love MyPillow and Mike Lindell and his great love for America and American products. So I have a new special offer for all of you. It's called the New Year Specials event for Giza Dream Sheets. They're as low as, listen to this, $29.98. You're not going to beat this anywhere. You're not going to beat these prices anywhere for the quality that you're going to get. Giza Dream Sheets, $29.98. Imagine sliding into the most comfortable sheets you can ever own. I know because I have them. They are amazing. In fact, I love them. My dog, Macy Daisy Buttercup, she is a little Chihuahua. I get her own MyPillow, dog pillow. In fact, she's sleeping under my desk right now. But it doesn't matter. When we go to bed, if she gets up on the bed, and usually that is to the chagrin of my husband, but if she gets up on the bed, she's laying on Mike Lindell's MyPillows. She really is. She loves them. I love them. They feel great. I love the sheets. I love the pillows. I love everything Mike has. And more than that, I love the fact that he has a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 1-year limited warranty. You are not going to find that anywhere at the mall, at any of the other stores. So I suggest you go to mypillow.com. You're going to love it. You're going to love me for sending you there. Shop the New Year specials at mypillow.com and use promo code Carter, CARTER, to get the huge discounts on all MyPillow bedding products, including blankets, pillows, and comforters, doggy beds, and get the Giza Dream Sheets, bed sheets for as low as $29.98 while quantities last. Stock up now at mypillow.com and use promo code Carter for the New Year's specials. mypillow.com, promo code Carter. Oh, surprise, surprise. Guess what, guys? DOJ, Department of Justice, seized more classified documents from Biden's Wilmington home after a 12-hour FBI search. And these documents, by the way, came all the way back from his good old days as senator. Yeah. And by the way, the documents themselves, they talk about batches. So it's not necessarily that they found like 12 extra pieces of paper or anything like that. This could be thousands of documents in these batches. So we don't really have the full gist of what is going on here. So listen to this. The Justice Department has seized additional classified records from President Biden's Wilmington, Delaware home after an FBI search that started on Friday. So this weekend. On January 20th, 2023, the FBI executed a planned consensual search of the president's Wilmington residence. And then they found these extra documents. The search comes basically a week after Attorney General Merrick Garland appointed U.S. Attorney Robert Hur as special counsel. The second stash of classified documents was also found inside the garage, remember right next to his Corvette. that I don't even know. I think Hunter Biden was like riding around town like a maniac in that Corvette, just going, ha ha ha, ha, and throwing all of the documents out the window. I don't know what the heck is going on at the Biden family home, but it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. And I'm going to tell you why, because I brought this up in the past. Foreign intelligence services were monitoring the Biden family for a very long time. That's a fact. I don't even need to see the document that proves that. I don't even need to go to Russia to ask the FSB to hand me that document because I know they did it. I don't need to ask the French intelligence or the Israeli Mossad or anybody if they were monitoring the Biden families, because more than likely they had been monitoring the Bidens and the Chinese for a very long time. What I'm really concerned about is all the documentation that was at the home and why it was there, even going back to the time he was in the Senate. But I think nothing's going to happen. I could be wrong. I think what's going to happen, something that's going to happen is that they cannot go after President Trump unless they do a full investigation and go completely after President Biden. But I think this is what's going to happen. I think President Biden is going to finish out. Biden's going to finish out his last term here, and that'll be it. And they are going to ask him to step aside and somebody else is going to come in, because they can't afford to have Biden in office anymore, the Democrats. And I think all of these documentation, everything that we're seeing happening is purposeful. I think they would have hidden this if they wanted Biden, they being the Democrats and the powerhouse players behind there. And I think that's why we've seen his chief of staff, Mr. Klein, he's gone now. So he's gone now, he's left. I think that's why we're seeing changes, because I believe it's over for Biden. So the good thing is that they probably have learned their lesson in a way. They're not going to go after Trump right now. I think they're, again, underestimating, but there's a lot of other people vying for the position on the Republican side. I would say I've heard rumblings about Governor Youngkin from Virginia. Of course, Ron DeSantis. I'm sure there's others out there like Tim Scott. There's women out there that are looking to vie that position. The former U.S. ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, we're hearing rumblings about that. But I do not think it will be Biden. I do not think it will be Biden. I think the reason all of this is coming out is because they certainly want to push him out. And I'd like to know what you think. I'd like to know if you believe that's the same thing that's going to happen. I mean, I read your Twitter accounts. I see what you write back to me on your emails, Instagram. I love that. I love hearing from you because it helps me communicate with you and get the stories out that are important to you. By the way, I hope we have an update really soon on the UFO stories, because I have neglected you on that front, on the space front, and I don't want to neglect you anymore. Anyways, thank you so much for being a part of the Sara Carter Show. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And now let's go out there and let's do something about it. You and I together can get our nation back. You and I together can fight for our children. We have so much to fight for, and we cannot do it unless we are doing it together. Follow me on Twitter at Sara Carter DC and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our great nation, and God bless the great state of Texas.